Cartoon Network historically has had a lot of dope shows on their platform. From stuff like Ben 10 to Teen Titans, there's been a treasure trove of animated series and cartoons that define generations. But as of late, there hasn't been anything, in my opinion, that has reached the heights of the other stuff they've had. But in a few days though, we are going to have a series that I think is going to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with a lot of those other series. And it's a story called Iyanu, Child of Wonder, based off the graphic novel series Iyanu, Child of Wonder. This is going to be an amazing series, and I want to tell you guys all about why I believe so, and a little bit of what to know before you get into the series and before you watch it. So without further ado, let's get into Iyanu, Child of Wonder.
You're now watching The Captain.
So first things first, let's start with what Iyanu is. If you haven't heard of the story, it is a story that is based on the graphic novel, like I mentioned before, called Iyanu, Child of Wonder. It's written by a Nigerian-born writer named Roye Okupe and is published by Unique Studios, and a recognizable name here, Dark Horse Comics. Yes, this is the same studio that brought you stuff like The Umbrella Academy and Hellboy. So there's a lot of dope stuff underneath this umbrella of prestige that Dark Horse Comics has, and I'm really glad that Iyanu is a part of that. But the story takes place in a magical kingdom of Yoruba land, a world heavily influenced by Nigerian mythology. We have a character by the name of Yanu, who is an orphan, and she spends a lot of her time in this world studying history and the ancient arts. But where the story kind of gets crazy is that one day she suddenly awakens this divine power that has been kind of hidden in this world. I guess in this world, magic has been kind of gone for a long time, and this age in this world is kind of referred to as the Age of Wonders. And with Yanu awakening this ability, everyone in the world kind of wants it, obviously. There are also dark forces in the world that her power is responsible for, destroying and taking out. If you're a fan of stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender, you'll probably see a lot of similarities here in regards to that, obviously. Character who is by themselves with this ancient power, and honestly, Yanu's abilities kind of look very similar to the Avatar state from The Last Airbender. So I think that's only a positive there, because if you're looking very similar to something like that, it's amazing to me, in my opinion. In regards to the comic though, a few things that I noticed that I thought was just amazing about it was, first and foremost, the art style. The art style of this book is very similar to stuff like the Alex Ross art style, in my opinion. So if you read stuff like Kingdom Come from DC Comics, you'll notice this really beautiful looking, elegant style of artistry that's there, and it puts a lot of emphasis on the character's facial expressions, and it kind of makes them look more badass, in my personal opinion. It's dope all in all, and I can't wait to see how the animation is going to adapt it, because obviously you can't make it a one-to-one thing, but hopefully the animation as a whole is going to do the comic book a little bit justice. And like I mentioned earlier, the story is based in a place called Yoruba land, and if you are well-traveled at all, or just Nigerian, or have any kind of African descent in you, you recognize that name as Yoruba being one of the major Nigerian cultures and tribes within the continent of Africa. This is pretty much a love letter to that culture, and I've talked about representation a lot here on my channel with different stuff from the Static video that I did to even Spike more recently. And one thing that I did really break down in regards to representation, especially Black representation within media, is the full African diaspora within Black people being represented. Obviously, in America, with stuff like Static or Spike, there's a lot of American representation in regards to African Americans and how our culture is here. But with stuff like Yanu, I find it so beautiful and elegant that you're able to take parts of mythology of the motherland and a lot of the things there and bring it over and make it something that is a lot of, it's really digestible for the American audience. And I think this serves to educate a lot of American-born Black people more about, the heritage that they may come from. If you happen to be in relation in your ancestry to the Yoruba tribe or anywhere in Nigeria in general, you're able to learn more about your roots all in all as a whole. And honestly, I think African mythology as a whole can be just as entertaining, if not as beautiful, as a lot of the stories we've gotten out of Greek mythology with like the Clash of the Titans or Hercules. We see those mythologies put on the big screen and in stories in the animated series over and over and over again, which they're amazing to see. But I would love to see stuff like this story with African mythology and Nigerian mythology being pushed to the forefront just a little bit, just to give that form of representation to everybody and to kind of see the cool stories that are yet to be told. And whenever we see just a little bit of it, it's always amazing, and in my opinion leaves a mark. When I look at like the Static series and how Anansi, a African superhero based on the powers of Anansi the Spider, was pushed to the forefront in that series, and how much of an impact he left on not only Black people but comic book fans and people that watch this series as a whole. I think that's just a prime example of what a story like Iyanu has the possibility to do going forward. See, this isn't just another chosen one narrative that you're used to seeing on television. It's a story about heritage, destiny, and has a lot of self-discovery kind of pushed to the forefront, all wrapped in a bow around African mythology. And like I mentioned before, this is a story that is very important in my opinion. Iyanu obviously is going to have a lot of similarities to The Last Airbender, like I mentioned before, but I think where this story differs is that there's a lot more looking into yourself and finding out who you are culturally than there was in the Last Airbender series, in my personal opinion. And that's amazing to me because I feel like a lot of people in the States and maybe in different places of the world assume Africa is kind of just one big conglomerate thing, and we don't really ever do our due diligence in breaking down these subtle differences within different areas of Africa. Obviously, North Africa is going to be different from South Africa to West and East. So having a show that gives a lot of information and breakdown over how specifically West African mythology and traditions are is amazing. They even talk about a lot of the different foods that they eat over in that area. You see a lot of the traditional garbs that is being worn here is garbs that is going to be very mirroring to the garbs worn in West Africa. So this story is, again, really great in establishing the mythology of the West African people, but not only that, it offers a glimpse into the lives of what West Africa looks like and how the people interact with one another and how they go about living their daily lives. When in regards to representation and making sure people see these different things to make them more educated in ways that they can without having to go directly there, because maybe you just broke, you can't afford to travel to Africa, I don't know. But this show will serve to give you just a little glimpse into the lives of someone different and make you understand places like Africa just a little bit more. So let's talk about what makes this show truly different than other shows we've seen on Cartoon Network up to this point. Iyanu is going to sport a all Nigerian voice cast. Yes, that's right. Every major role in this show is going to be voiced by Nigerian talent, and it's going to bring a sort of real authenticity to the role. I feel like in other stuff we've seen, we have characters who aren't of certain cultures learning or putting on a certain accent or a voice to try to mirror a culture. So it comes across very dope, and like a lot of care is put into it for the fact that they were able to go out there and find talent that they thought was worthy to be the voice and the cast for this stuff, and them actually having cultural ties to the place that the story is about. And I think it's going to add a certain level of care that maybe people that weren't of the culture may not have or may not have had going into creating the series. So not only will this cast be all Black, but it's also going to be produced by a Black-owned studio by the name of Lion Forge Entertainment. And I think all this, in my opinion, is going to serve to push this show forward with a lot more authenticity than you would normally think. Although I do think other studios can do a great job of producing a show like this, even if they're not of the same culture or have a certain level of cultural relation. Having a Black-owned studio with a Black cast that is of the culture, I think is going to serve to push a lot of the vision that the show initially had, or even not even just the show, but the book originally had when it first came out. So this is going to be dope to me all around. So in regards to release date information, streaming platforms you'll be able to find this on, and the availability worldwide. For people that are in the States, you'll be able to see the show debut on Cartoon Network, like I mentioned, on April 5th and April 6th on HBO Max. And for our lovely friends and comrades over in Africa, you will be getting the entire first season on Showmax starting June 13th. And for the UK viewers, don't worry, I think there's a platform called ITVX that's going to be picking it up this summer as well. So for people that are interested in this series, let me know in the comment section below. Did you know about Iyanu before you went into this video? Are you going to be reading the book before you go into watching the actual show? Again, y'all let me know all that in the comment section below. But all in all, please do yourself a favor, and on April 5th or April 6th or whatever the appropriate date is for wherever you are, check out this show and support something like this, because these type of shows are very important, and they're going to serve to give us a lot of diversity within the storytelling we're going to get. Because if this show succeeds, maybe we'll get more stories based around Mayan culture or Aztec culture, or even more stuff based in Chinese culture. You never know, because mythology in general, obviously, is something that's very amazing, as we've seen with a lot of stuff with Greek mythology, like I mentioned before. But being able to jump into the mythologies of all these other cultures and all these other places of the world are only going to serve to connect us as a world together more as we learn more about one another. Again, guys, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo. Be good people and go check out Iyanu. See you guys next time. Peace.